Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. I know that there are quite a few people that love to follow major trials. They listen to podcasts and read stories about murder trials and the like. I am not one of those people. I mean, I'll follow one from time to time that, catches my eye or something, but it's not something that I seek out. Now, the case of Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's assassin, is an exception to the rule. Yeah, the killing of Charlie Kirk was a major event in history. I don't say that lightly. I do believe that it told us where we were as a society and where we're going. First, we see just how many people opposed to, conservatism and Christianity there are, and what they're willing to do. And I'm not just talking about assassination, though obviously there are those, but also those that spewed hatred at someone like Charlie and his family after his death. But second, I think it was, it has motivated so many that liked what he had to say and how he said it, but were too apathetic or scared to voice their opinions or act on those beliefs. So for this and other reasons, I wanted to focus on the beginning of the trial with today's podcast. Now, remember, this is a preliminary hearing that the state of Utah requires to make sure there is sufficient evidence, and then there will be a full trial. So it's kind of like a grand jury in some states. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one. Never before seen security footage played Tuesday during a preliminary hearing in the murder case against Tyler Robinson appeared to show Robinson walking with what authorities described as a limp just minutes before the shooting. Quote, UVU prosecutors just presented this footage of Tyler Robinson arriving on campus for the third time, just minutes before the shooting. This is what Blake Neff, a producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, posted online. Quote, look at how he is walking, as if something is hindering his right leg. Now, reports have previously indicated that Robinson appeared to walk with a stiff leg before the shooting, or with an unusual gait, as they called it, which some have suggested could indicate that he was concealing a rifle under his clothing. Robinson is facing the death penalty for the fatal shooting of the TPUSA founder and conservative leader Charlie Kirk. Now, Agent David Hull testified that Robinson was walking with a gait or a limp as the video played in the courtroom. And the agent said the suspect appeared to be having difficulty walking. Reporters inside the courtroom said the prosecution used surveillance footage to establish that Robinson was on campus 4 separate times on September 10th of 2025. And of course, that's the day that Kirk was killed. Quote, the timeline prosecutors are building is strong. Surveillance placing Robinson on campus before, during, and after the shot. Roof access, sniper position in the gravel. That screwdriver left behind, every piece fits, is what Jack Pozebek reported on Monday, saying defense is already grasping at procedural straws, unquote. In another video played for the court, a person believed to be Robinson was seen rolling over the railing of the Losee Student Center and moving into a prone position just seconds before Kirk was shot. This is what Neff posted. Security footage also appeared to show a person believed to be Robinson seconds after Kirk was fatally shot. The person was seen running along the top of the campus building, quote, before dropping down onto the grass and heading away from campus on foot, carrying something, is what the New York Times reported. And security footage and testimony from the lead investigator into the assassination of Charlie Kirk testified Tuesday that Tyler Robinson interacted with Turning Point USA members just hours before Kirk was shot dead. During a preliminary hearing on Tuesday, David Hull, who is a former Utah State Bureau of Investigation, or SBI agent, said accused killer Robinson was on the Utah Valley University campus multiple times on September 10th of 2025. Now, Hull said at one point that day, Robinson traveled to the school's amphitheater and interacted with members of TPUSA, this according to the New York Times. Robinson then returned to campus later that morning and bought food from a Chick-fil-A roughly 2 hours before the shooting. This is what the Times again is reporting. Now, testimony and security footage also indicate that a man believed to be Robinson had a brief encounter with an officer near the campus while a manhunt was underway for Kirk's killer. The interaction, quote, raised enough suspicion for the officer to note his license plates, is what the Times is saying. Notably, Robinson, his defense team tried to prevent surveillance video showing Robinson on the Utah Valley University campus from being broadcast on the live stream for the public to view. But Judge Tony Graff, however, allowed the footage to be played. And as highlighted by the Daily Wire on Tuesday, security footage played for the court appeared to show Robinson walking with the authorities described as a limp minutes before the shooting. Quote, UVU prosecutors just presented this footage of Tyler Robinson arriving on campus for the third time just minutes before the shooting, is what Blake Neff, he's a producer for the Charlie Kirk Show, as we said. And Robinson is facing the death penalty for the fatal shooting of Turning Point USA founder and conservative leader Charlie Kirk. Now, there was one moment that impacted the judge in this case, and pretty significantly. The judge in the Tyler Robinson murder trial visibly flinched while watching footage of the fatal shooting of TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk. During Monday's preliminary hearing in Provo, Utah, Judge Tony Graff Jr. was shown footage from different angles of the moment Kirk was assassinated last September. A live stream of the hearing, which does not show the footage of the murder, shows Graff reacting to the graphic footage. And the footage was only shown on monitors in front of the judge and at the attorney's tables. Quote, this is the heartbreaking moment. Judge Graff appears to flinch at approximately the 25-second mark while reviewing a previously unseen angle of Charlie Kirk's murder during today's preliminary hearing. This is what journalist Sarah Fields, who was in the courtroom, reported. The courtroom was silent as the footage played. Notably, Kirk's parents, Rob and Catherine, and his widow, Erica, of course, left the courtroom before the judge watched the footage, and the hearing marked the first time the family was face-to-face with Robinson. Donald Trump Jr., who was very close with Kirk for years, was also in attendance, and Brian Enton, senior national correspondent for News Nation, reported that Robinson, quote, was laughing with his attorney before the hearing started, unquote. Jack Prozovec, a close friend of Kirk, attended the trial too, and also said Robinson showed no remorse and was laughing during the hearing. Quote, the timeline prosecutors are building is strong, is what he said. Surveillance placing Robinson on campus before, during, and after the shot is there. The hearing will determine whether prosecutors have presented enough evidence to establish probable cause for Robinson to stand trial in Kirk's assassination trial. Now, prosecutors are continuing to seek the death penalty, which remains on the table if Robinson is convicted. But that's what was going on inside the courtroom. Outside the court, it is getting a little crazy, and has been for a little while now. The conspiracy theorists are out in force, and they're out in force with their ringleader Candace Owens in full throat. Robert Draper of New York Times said outside the state district court where the preliminary hearing for a man charged with shooting Charlie Kirk was about to begin its first day, Houston-based podcaster Kelly Radin laughed sheepishly when asked if that man, Tyler Robinson, was guilty. Quote, "You're going to think I'm crazy," Radin replied, "but I think Charlie's still alive." Unquote. Yeah. Robinson, she went on, was at most a spotter at the scene of the crime of Utah Valley University last September. Radin suggested that Kirk, a 31-year-old conservative activist, was currently at an undisclosed location and that he, along with his wife, President Donald Trump, and other government officials were potentially involved in the PSYOP. Well, Rabin is one of several conspiracy theorists at the Provo courthouse, camping out overnight to be the first members of the public allowed into the courtroom. Selena Armitage, too, had some questions. A true crime enthusiast living 45 miles away in West Valley City, Armitage said of Kirk's killing, "I don't think we've scratched the surface." Well, the proceeding this week to weigh evidence against Robinson will seek to impose judicial norms on the case that seems likely to test those standards to the breaking point. Kirk's death, after all, is the first assassination of a prominent American political figure in the internet age, and any straightforward prosecution of Robinson will require navigating a parallel universe of conspiracy theories turbocharged with social media. The cramped district courtroom has just 14 seats available to the public, and some will be occupied by people including Rabin and Armitage, who are of the view that the state's case is far from the complete picture. They will be reinforced by untold watchers of the hearings live stream. The shooting was, in effect, nationally televised. The moment a bullet pierced Kirk's neck was captured on mobile phones and posted in real time. As straightforward as the horrific footage was, internet sleuths were not taking it on face value. Where is the exit wound? Where is the blood? Who are the adults in the campus audience? Who is one of them gesturing just before the shot? Why do some of the staff members of Turning Point USA, Kirk's political organization, seem to react without alarm at his slumping body? Why are several men in the crowd wearing maroon shirts? I mean, just stupid stuff, right? But the first 2 days of testimony have offered additional fodder. The prosecution's opening witness, who was the former Utah Valley special officer named Chris Bagley, testified Monday that his body camera's their battery died while he was investigating the rooftop where police say Robinson fired his lethal shot. Under cross-examination by defense attorney Catherine Nestor, Bagley also acknowledged that his report did not include any mention of a rifle case that surveillance video showed the shooter carrying, nor had he identified a plainclothes officer with a badge who had accompanied Bagley to the rooftop, nor had he secured an empty pistol holder that he saw lying abandoned on the grassy area near where Kirk was killed. Now, on Tuesday morning, Nestor elicited from the lead investigator in the case, David Hull from the State Bureau of Investigation, the facts that no shell casings had been found on the rooftop, while at least 2 other firearms were discovered at the crime scene below. Hull also admitted that he had not interviewed 2 individuals who claimed that their own rooftop video featured an individual whose clothing and build did not match those of Robinson. I might stop here and say that the rifle is not one that ejects the shell unless you actually physically do it. So that just doesn't hold water, really. Such vagaries are common in criminal investigations, and evidence is rarely conclusive. eyewitness accounts, seldom 100% reliable, confessions not always, ironclad. But such nuances can be lost on judges and juries of social media, right? Right-wing social media influencers have, and I say right-wing in quotes, right? They have foraged on Kirk's assassination with particular zeal. Chief among them, Candace Owens, a former, actually, she's a former TPUSA star, turned antagonist who has devoted dozens of podcast episodes to the subject. And she's, I feel confident stating that Tyler Robinson did not murder Charlie Kirk. That's what she said recently. And in her view, Robinson was a potential patsy who was not even on campus that day. I guess you can tell your lying eyes that, he wasn't, whatever. Owens has at various times implicated the victim's widow, Erica Kirk, Turning Point USA staff, and even the Israeli government, but only with tantalizing questions and dots for our audience to connect, not actually true alternative scenarios. Because the ones she's touting don't have any evidence. But anyway, such theories may lack evidence, but they have an audience. By far the biggest media presence at Utah preliminary hearing is Fox News Channel, which has more than a dozen employees in Provo and has Rabban acknowledged outside the courtroom conspiracy theories are popular, some more than others. And her podcast has it's 8 months old and already has 7,500 YouTube subscribers. And is a figure that figure is, she said, would be higher if she were to embrace more alluring conspiracy theories, such as the belief that Kirk was killed by an incendiary device in his microphone. Again, another Candace whopper. Anyway, quote, "I'm doing fake death," Rabban said. If I was doing explosive microphone, the algorithms would like me better. But beyond all of these conspiracy theories, I think we spent enough time on that. There's a ton of them out there, let me tell you. But beyond all of these conspiracy theories, what can we learn from Charlie Kirk's death? Mark Buxton put it well. I think he said, "The assassination of Charlie Kirk has affected people very deeply. Many of my friends online have posted videos and blogs and posts about the situation. If we're being honest, we're all having a little trouble processing what has happened. Clearly, America has changed forever. And it's possible the world has changed too. I don't claim to have all the answers," he says, "but as I've thought and processed over the last several days, I've realized a few things that we should take away from this moment in history. First, evil is real. We should really have no doubt of this with everything that has happened in our world on an hourly basis. But the public execution of Charlie Kirk was shocking in its open display of pure evil. Kirk was not a politician. He was a leader, but did not hold public office. Politicians are often the targets of violence, and it's sad, but somewhat expected. That's why they have security details. The high-profile private political influencers have security details, but rarely do we see a story about them being attacked. This would have been a story. This would have been a story if Kirk had just been attacked at a rally, hit over the head with a hammer, pushed down the stairs. But the reality was much worse and shocked the nation to its core. Evil took aim on that afternoon without remorse and without fear and without conscience. In much the same way as on the afternoon of September 11th of 2001, on September 10th of 2025, we lost a little bit of our innocence. Some naivete is good, ignorance is bliss, but those days are gone. Evil is here, and it is real. This realization affects all of us on a spiritual level. And second, evil hates us. One of the first thoughts I had, he says, when I saw the news of Kirk's murder, was that was me. I could not get that sense out of my head. It stayed with me. And as I processed that, what I realized was that Charlie Kirk very much represented what I believe and how I live. A believer in Jesus Christ, a conservative, a family man who loves his wife and kids, a man who loves America and who was not afraid to have a debate about the truth. That's me. And evil hates us. Not only would the assassin's bullet have been just as happy to find me, but the people spewing hatred for Kirk and his family online, the myriad of high school and college teachers celebrating his death, would be just as happy if I found the same end. Not only are we now more aware that evil is present, we are aware that evil targets us. It's personal this time. And third, we have a job to do. Yes, the state has a job to ensure justice is served. Yes, politicians have a job to secure the nation and to make things like this impossible. But we as believers have a higher calling. Our job is to shine a light. Our job is to be unashamed. Our job is to be the salt. Our job is to bring good news to the darkness. Could this be the seeds of a revival that we have prayed for so long? I'm hoping that it is. It can be if we fulfill our calling to go and tell, and we have a job to do. I've been struck and reminded, challenged, and encouraged by that thought this week. Christian history is filled with martyrs, those lives proclaimed Christ and whose deaths proclaimed him louder. Because when someone is killed for their faith, it awakens those who remain and reminds us of what is at stake. It brings everything into focus. The martyrdom of Charlie Kirk has caused me to sit up a little straighter, think a little clearer, and be all of the more ready to give an answer for the hope that I have. Maybe it'll be with all of you as well. But I wanted to conclude today with this. I saved this one last as I thought it was really good. And this one was written by Steve 2525. Don't know who he is, but he writes for Conservative Christian Apologist, and he wrote this soon after Charlie's death. And he said, "Today Charlie Kirk was assassinated while he talked with college youth about the love of Jesus and conservative principles found in Scripture. He was the greatest champion of the conservative message, which is grounded in the Bible, God's message of love to mankind. Charlie had a gift of dispelling the lies of the enemy and speaking the truth of Yeshua Messiah. Now, the world will rejoice, thinking it has silenced the best of God's advocates. But history and Scripture reveal another outcome. When Stephen, in the first century, was so eloquent and convincing in his explanation that Yeshua was Messiah, he was stoned to death. You can read that in Acts 7:39 through 60. However, Saul, renamed Paul, became an apostle that went on 3 missionary journeys, establishing churches all over the Roman Empire. God does not take lightly the death of his saints. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his faithful servants. That's Psalm 116:15. In the same way, Charlie is a martyr, speaking about the love of Jesus as he was killed in hatred. I was following this from the beginning of reports that 1,000 students had signed a petition against Charlie, speaking at their college, just talking one-on-one, as was his custom, with students about truth, common sense, and the love of God. Then I heard he had been shot, and there were calls for prayers by the vice president and the president himself. One news commentator reported this and prayed on air, which, of course, is highly irregular. I joined in prayer, believing that God can and does deliver his children from the clutches of the enemy. I mean, we can read that just simply in Acts 16:20 through 34. I had all confidence that Charlie Kirk's life was in God's hands, not the enemy's, and that his recovery would bring glory to God. I was wrong this time regarding Charlie's mission, but my faith in God's mercy and faithfulness stands strong. I know that Charlie Kirk is a martyr, which Scripture explains is a blessing and a call of God. Yes, Revelation 6:9, Romans 8:36, for instance, talk about that. God will raise up many to replace Charlie Kirk, and some may be like Saul, who was opposing the very God he sought. I was right that Charlie's life was in God's hands. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore, rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short. That's Revelation 11 through 12. I think that this trial is going to bring up some real hurts for some people. I think it's going to make them think again about what Charlie Kirk was about. Again, I'm not lifting him up and putting him on a pedestal. What I'm doing is I'm acknowledging the fact that this guy was doing God's work. He was literally going to colleges and universities and other places and having conversations with them. He would dispense of their fallacies or their lies with just words. And yet, he was killed for it. He was killed for telling the truth. He was killed for dispensing the truth, which is what God has called us to do. He was simply martyred. And so, yeah, I think that we look at this trial, and I think that the assassination of Charlie Kirk really has changed us forever. There's some that are spewing hate even still, conspiracy theories even still. But I think there are those that look at this and go, you know what? I can do a little bit of that. I can talk to my neighbor and not be afraid. I can have the courage to dispense truth. I can talk with someone about God. I can tell them about, biblical principles when it comes to even politics. So I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk has changed us forever. And it'll be interesting to see how this trial goes. Love to hear what you think on it. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. And go to our YouTube page, if you would. Go ahead and like and follow. That would be great. And thank you for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.